system, the various other systems. We did not go into that at all. Are we a democracy at all? That is simply a big question. Because we call ourselves representative democracy. Hardly 25% mandate, you control the government and do whatever you want. 25% of the electorate. That's all. When you are looking at the mandate, you must look at the electorate's mandate. This central government today enjoys only 25% of the electorate's mandate. And they think that they own the country. So there are a lot of defects, we didn't go into that. So, and based on that, the second report, then eventually we decided to publish a book. So last January of 2002, this book was published. Book titled Electoral Democracy, an Inquiry into the Fairness and Integrity of Elections in India. I edited it, published by, you must have heard of this famous journalist, Paranjoy Thakurta. Since media is hostile, media is completely captured, they hardly gave any notice. And nobody has even bothered to write about this. Nobody knows about it. I don't think anybody in this hall knows about this book, which is there for 1 year, which completely examines, dissects the entire electoral system that's prevailing, and has come to the conclusion that India's electoral system has failed in every front. I'm sorry to say that, but that's a fact. Even Qureshi has written a detailed article about the election commission. He was very reluctant. And he told him, no, you have to write. When you are feeling that way, you must write. And he has written it. This article is worth reading. How election commission is functioning now, and from where the election commission is rendered. Now coming to my subject, this is a very important subject, EVM and transparency of election. Now the question is, ever since the machine has been introduced, who is voting? Who is voting? The voter is voting or machine is voting? Okay. Who is counting? Is the officials counting or machine is counting? Machine is voting, machine is counting. Simple as that. Now, machine may be the best in the world. I'm not saying that at all, but we talk to the computer scientists, they say nonsense. I have talked to some of the best computer scientists in the country. Say any machine we can manipulate, no problem. I am not a technical man, so I will not make any opinion on that. But the question is, who is voting? Who is counting? Rather, I would say, what is voting and what is counting? So the danger lurks in there. Unfortunately, it has not been given the kind of attention that it deserves. Now, I don't know, there must be quite a few of you here who has voted in the paper ballot system, right? I am one of them. So let me explain what is the issue. It is not hacking. It is not anything else. Whatever, I am not going into that at all. Basic fundamental democracy principles. Unless an election system complies with the democracy principles, it is no election at all. You are not electing a trade union leader. You are not electing a student union leader. You are transferring your sovereignty. Former advocate journalists here, former judges here, they know voting is transfer of sovereignty. Citizen is sovereign, you are transferring your sovereignty for 5 years. Should not the voter know, has knowledge that to whom he is transferring, whether it is transfer is actually taking place? How does he know? See, during the ballot paper, as you enter the polling booth, the presiding officer gives you the ballot paper. Your first impulse is to open it and see. I had intended to cast my vote, and yes, I am satisfied. I have seen it myself. I have cast. Now what is happening? You press a button, you press a button, you hear a voice, you hear a noise, and see a light. That's all. How do you know the vote is recorded at all? How do you know where it is recorded? It might have been, But you do not know. You must depend upon the machine. Whatever the machine does. So, first, cast as intended, recorded as cost. Was it recorded as you cost? The third principle is counted as recorded. Counting, of course, all the voters are not present. Only your representatives, political party representatives, but I have conducted 3-4 elections during my brief field tenure. And we know, how counting is done. For each candidate, there is a tray. For rejection, there is a tray. There is a doubtful vote, there is a tray. Your representative at least seeing it. So now you just plug it, press the button, it comes on the screen. The point we are trying to make is that EVM voting is machine voting. Machine is doing the voting, machine is the counting. Voter is not doing it. These were agitated in 2 legal forum, top legal forum in the country, simultaneously. Supreme Court it's called the Federal Court of in Germany and Supreme Court of India. Supreme Court started with Delhi High Court, then went to the Supreme Court. Same time, 2009, 2000. German Supreme Court was very clear in this verdict. The argument was put forth to him, technology has come, we must adopt technology. Supreme Court said, sorry sir, we are not talking about technology. We are talking about democracy. We are talking about democracy. Even the poorest of the poor man, most ignorant man, ordinary man is voting. He is not technically qualified. He is not IIT graduate. They are not engineers. He must be satisfied. He must know your system does not have that. As long as your system does not have that, it is unconstitutional. Plain. Very simple, very detailed order. I read the order a couple of times. It is unconstitutional. And every country went back. Every European country went back to the paper ballot. America, USA went back, more than 80%. Almost every genuine democracies have gone back to the paper ballot. In Supreme Court, what happened? First it went to the Delhi High Court, Subramanian Swamy, and judgments were suspicious. They have expressed suspicion. Yes, there is a lot of problem with integrity of EVM, but we can't give a solution. It is for the Election Commission. So, Subramanian Swamy went to the Supreme Court. By the time, that was the time Qureshi was the Chief Election Commissioner, and they all technical fellows, I don't know what happened in the Election Commission, they brought this VVPAT, Voter Verifiable Paper Trail. They saying that we'll put a small little slip. You can see it for 7 seconds and everything is taken care of. And everybody was taken in. Supreme Court was taken in. They're all right. Put the VVPAT. So VVPAT order was passed in 2013. Since then, with EVM, you have a VVPAT machine where the slip will come for 7 seconds. You see it, symbol will be there, name is there, and you feel that everything is okay. Then again there was a delay, and again Supreme Court kept on giving 2, 3, 4 judgments. Virtually the Supreme Court even allotted a budget for buying VVPAT, and for the first time in 2019 election, Parliament election, all VVMs were attached with VVPAT. All, 100%. That is where the actual problem started. In fact, that was supposed to solve the problem, but it created a problem, major problem, which the Election Commission is hushing it up, suppressing it. Now, earlier, there was only one vote. The memory, the EVM memory, which was attached to the computer and came. Now there are 2 votes. Look at the strange democracy that we have in this country. Has media ever written? We have written all this in this book. There are now 2 votes. One is in the memory of the EVM, one is the paper slip, which is dropping down. Which is the real vote? Which is the vote? In 2013, Election Commission, again I think Qureshi was the Election Commissioner, Chief Election Commissioner. They realized this and rule under the electoral rule, conduct of election rules. In the event of a dispute, it is the paper trail that is the real vote. So there is a rule, Rule 56. But even now, the Election Commission does not count the VVPAT slip. They refuse to count. They are only counting and they are not even cross-verifying. They wanted to cross-verify one booth in one assembly constituency, mind you. In Karnataka, average size of assembly constituency about 300 booths in assembly constituency. One. Absurdity. Can there be any verification? We are counting 1 out of 300. Then matter went to the Supreme Court. I was also a petitioner. Supreme Court Justice Gogoi was there. They did not even listen to the arguments. Our top, almost all top advocates were there. But they did not listen. They summarily disposed it off. Now instead of 1, make it 5. We asked for 30%. Political parties asked for 50%. And 5 means 2%. From 0.5%, Supreme Court said 2%. So it has not solved, and that too, not before. Verification should start before. First, isn't it? No. However, all the counting is over. Result is virtually announced, except the returning officer is not signed. Every stage, today the communication is so fast. Everyone knows celebration take place. People have made announcements and crackers are burnt. And 12 o'clock in the night, they will cross-verify that 5. It has become a joke. We kept on representing. Mind you, we have a citizens, we have a constitutional contact group of about 200 civil servants, former civil servants. Most of them IAS, some IPS, some IFS. All of us have conducted elections. Not one, several elections. We have been writing to the Election Commission. Election Commission does not respond. Then Citizens Commission, finally, we said, all right. We gave this report, and the Election Commission has been given. Finally, we said we have to now make it public. So we brought in the political parties. In August, on August 13th of this year, last year, we had a very successful joint conference in Delhi between civil society, almost all top civil society leaders were there, and all political parties. We invited all the political parties except BJP, everyone came. Except BJP, repeated requests. They came and it was unanimously resolved. And our report is based on some of the best brains in the world. Not only India, IIT Delhi, IIT Kanpur, Indian Institute of Mathematics, Madras. These are the three institutions were involved. And outside India, it was, I'll tell you, we had this, experts, professors from Indian Institute of Technology, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT in USA, University of Michigan, George Washington University, University of California, Berkeley, University of Melbourne, and Institute of Mathematical Sciences, all top brains. Then we sent memorandum to the Election Commission of India. They did not bother. And then we passed a joint resolution. I'll just read out the joint resolution. We did not say, everyone in the meeting said, we must go back to the paper ballot. The technical experts said, no, let us not. Within the system itself, they can improve. It can be done. Let us give a resolution. Here, a resolution was passed. Number one resolution was EVMs cannot, this is drafted by IIT professors, not me. Drafted by IIT professors, I don't want to name them, IIT Delhi and IIT Kanpur. EVMs cannot be assumed to be tamper-proof. The voting process should be redesigned to be software and hardware independent in order to be verifiable and auditable. 2. The VVPAT system should be redesigned to be fully voter verified. A voter should be able to get the VVPAT slip and cast it in a chip-free ballot box for the vote to be valid and counted. Not like the tamasha that is taking place. Just dropping it, you don't know what you saw was right, whether it was manipulation, there was tampering, insert. The vote must be taken by the candidate, by the voter, and cast, so that he is sure that it is not being manipulated. This should not require interaction with any authorities, and it should not depend on any way on assumptions of correctness of machines. 3. Integrity of VVPAT slips and the EVM machines during the entire time after polling and before counting and auditing must be ensured in a manner that is verifiable. VVPAT slips must be printed in such manner to be preserved for a minimum 5 years. Do you know? Within 4 months, this present slip will go away. They destroy this. There is no question. It is now challenging election in the High Court is become meaningless. Earlier, if the judge feels that yes, there is a problem, the whole thing will be reenacted in the court itself. Paper boxes the ballot boxes will come, will be ordered to be counted, and decision will be given. Now, within 4 months, because number one, it is printed in that kind of paper. What is it called? Paper? Some thermal paper. It goes away. There is no record. And within 4 months, it is destroyed. So, fraud is the word that can be used. There's no other word that can be used. We said it must be printed in proper paper. There must be stringent audit of the elections tally for every constituency before the results are declared. The audit should be based on full manual counting of VVPAT slips. We have now told them, listen, your rule says slips are the real vote. Why don't you count that? And then cross-verify with the, if you want to cross-verify with the EVM, the same. But they do the totally opposite. They don't even touch the VVPAT. And then in the Supreme Court, they filed a false affidavit saying that it will take 6 days. Nonsense. We have conducted elections. 12 hours, maximum 16 hours. Qureshi is given in writing. It will take less than that because it's a small slip. And they file a affidavit in the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court accepts it. That will take 6 days. Even if it's 6 days, so what? You are keeping the boxes for 1.5 months. In elections, 7th stage, 8th stage, even if it's 6 days, so what? Elsewhere in the whole world, counting starts immediately and goes on for several days. Even in USA, by the time the final result comes, it takes several days, doesn't matter. Counting is critical. Now let us, after all these studies, it is the counting where the fraud is taking place. So then, the fourth one was, there is need, this full count, that's what we asked for. There is need to move away from the certification of voting equipment and process and demonstrate that the outcome of an election is correct irrespective of machines, and trust on custody chains of EVMs and VVPATs. This can be done by adopting well-established strategy for risk-limiting audits or by using a provable end-to-end verifiable cryptographic protocol, or both. The ECA should explore the possibilities. And finally, the EVM voting and counting system design should be subject to independent of the government and ECA review, and integrity of the election process should be subject to independent audit. The findings should be made public, and all design details should be transparent and publicly available. In spite of all these developments, the Election Commission has not even responded. The Election Commission feels, today's Election Commission feels, they are loyal only to the office of the Prime Minister. They are not loyalty not to the Constitution, their loyalty not to the voter, and in the circumstances, how can there ever be free and fair election? So, there are three major challenges we have been holding conferences on that. The money power, the media power, and the machine power. We are talking about mother of all democracies and largest democracy. All these are become jokes. And what is the problem with the election commission? The election commission should respond. But starting from mid 2015, I don't want to go into details. Starting from mid 2015, the election commission is manipulating election. Sorry for saying that. I am saying it with all sense of responsibility. Earlier, whatever manipulations take place outside, now it is being done with the connivance of the election commission. And you people can decide whether such an election can ever be free and fair. Thank you very much.
All of us have a role to play and to be inspired by Mr. Deva Sahayam to use his knowledge of government and administration and the law and the constitution to help democracy survive and flourish in our country. Thank you very much, Professor Mr. Deva Sahayam. Now we have a very outstanding academic, a former a prize winner of the Infosys Prize, our Nobel Prize in Bangalore, a social anthropologist and a professor retired from the National Institute of Advanced Studies in the Indian Institute of Science, Professor A.R. Vasvi. She will be speaking on this interesting topic, caste, capital, and regional satraps in Karnataka politics. Professor Vasvi.
Thank you. The earlier speakers have elaborated very well the erosion of democracy, especially by the institutions that were set up to uphold democracy. What I'd like to do now is to look at the political culture in Karnataka and look specifically at some of the agents, the elected representatives themselves who are responsible for the deterioration of democratic norms and ideas in the state. I'd like to highlight the ways in which some of these elected representatives has what I call big men. They are what are called dalvais or yajamanas, the English word we've used is satraps, have risen from the regional settings to become dominant in the state electoral playground, and therefore largely account for a particular kind of political culture in which democratic deficits are very significant. Much of what I say holds lots of it, but I'll concentrate on Karnataka and also qualify by saying I've been advised against taking, although I have a lot of details, especially for 18 of these major players, and how Karnataka's elections and political defined by them. Since it's well known that since the first elections, 1951 elections, caste played a major role. It largely defined our political system. But what is happening now is not only an intensification of caste supported by capital, but the rise of major leaders who are now in turn subverting even the existing institutions and that was set up to uphold democracy. So what I'll do is share with you two aspects. One is for Karnataka, identify who are these, not by name, but how do these satraps or yajamanas come into being, into the political scenario, into this so-called electoral political system, and what impact have they had on the system as such. First, one of the things, again, very, very well documented is many of the large players come from dominant castes, that is castes that have a significant numerical presence, had typically in rural areas access to agricultural land and to some amount of capital or, being entrepreneurs. Based on that, it is also the idea that political parties identify some of these key players who would have had some amount of family background, their fathers or grandfathers would have been in some politics or would have had some standing, social, political standing in the area, and therefore they come into to the political system. But in doing that, they also bring with them large numbers of a network of followers, people who not only become part of their vote bank, but work within the political constituencies, targeting certain people and bringing them into the fold of the political party. So basically, the way they function is on the old, what is called the Yajmani or Jajman system. The elected representative or the leader poses as a patron, saying that I will give you certain benefits, you give me the votes, although later you would see that the accountability system does not kick in at all. But the electorate is treated primarily as clients, that is, people, you give me a vote, I may give you certain things, but on very personalized basis. And this is very important to understand how this personal dynamics and interrelationships between the elected representative, his followers, and then into the constituents becomes a way in which democratic processes are actually bypassed. They play multiple roles. In politics, for the party, they may mobilize votes, garner votes, say, in this area, I would get you from this group or so much votes, etc. That would be their primary visibility. But more importantly, at the level of development, they act as mediators. For example, I will bring you this irrigation project, I will bring you a factory, I will set up a school, I will promise you to have, if it is a taluka that has certain problems, I will set up a new district. And this is what has happened, especially since the past 2 decades, the carving of new districts by certain of these dominant leaders. Socially, they act as negotiators between various groups, not only local conflicts, even personal family politics that they negotiate, but also where there are major conflicts. Another reason that they have regional influence and the rise to power is if there are unresolved tensions between groups, example, contestations over religious sites, where they would take up that as a major cause, or they would take up any of a regional cause, identification, or any kind of access to resources that region needs, has the legitimate way to get presence. In the public roles that they play is primarily in terms of being present for the media, inaugurating either temples, any kind of religious sites, inaugurating buildings, attending at weddings of influential people, or even attending weddings at the local level, but continuously reinforcing the patron role, making sure that their visibility is always intact. In their work, what you see is it is very, very unprofessional. Many of the constituencies which I've looked at don't have elected representatives, don't have formal offices where there are procedures where constituents can come, register their complaints, or make requests, or check on rules and regulations. Instead, it is very personalized, where people must appease these leaders. For example, many of them hold darbars in their house, not in the offices. Give them favors. They are made to seem as favors. For example, oh, your child needs some, medical attention. I will call the doctor in such a hospital and get it for you, rather than seeing it as a process or as a formal entitlement. The other issues that they do is also when they take up many regional issues, many of them are seen and promoted as beneficial to the region or to the constituency, but long term they may have detrimental effects. For example, we've seen in the case of irrigation projects, the long-term ecological impacts that they have, or in many, many cases, land acquisition, which Justice Das has written very eloquently about, facilitating land acquisition, making it sound like this is good for urbanization, this is good for the new industrialization, and therefore it will bring investment to the area. But in many ways, those are the ways in which they actually gain power. While this has been going on for many years, since the 1990s, with the opening up of the neoliberal economy, there are 4 key sources in which big money is played into these hands and has also led to the making of these very big men. The 4 sources are construction primarily, mostly because not only of the booming economy, but also the way in which the construction industry involves not only large amounts of money, but the government is a key player, and therefore by accessing government funds for construction, there is all the leakage that enables them to consolidate their capital. Real estate is also the second big one. Then extractive economies, which is the mining, all of which were liberalized since the 1990s. And the fourth is the setting up of new private institutions, especially health and education institutions, hospitals, colleges, universities, etc. This largely accounts for the fact that in 2018, when we did a review of that previous assembly, ADR actually did this review, the Association for Democratic Reforms, which does excellent reviews of the background of candidates. They showed that 7 out of the 10 crorepati's, top 10 crorepati's who had more than 10 crores each, 7 out of these 10 people came from Bangalore itself, both Bangalore urban and Bangalore rural, which accounts for the fact that construction and real estate money had led to making some of these big money. The other 2 came from Bellary then in 2018, that was end of that phase, and only 1 from Hassan. So looking at how it is really primarily urban, industrial, investment-based capital that is consolidating these big men. There are also people who are now invested very heavily in media, especially we've seen how Kannada channels, all the other medias are also owned by them, but also the way in which they access them, and also investing, for example, a few of them, including elected representatives from Bangalore making films in Kannada, investing not only in the films, but also through that accessing the public. Finally, one of the reasons which I mentioned earlier is that the political parties access these big men only because they think or they know that they have developed certain vote banks and they bring to them this vote bank. So one reason why they overlook their own criminal records, very poor performing records, and do not check on the backgrounds of many of these people to whom they give election tickets. The fallout of this is 2. One is it also accounts for the fact that if you looked at the 1950s to 1960s assembly in Karnataka, we actually had many more women candidates and participants. That has declined mostly because parties are seeking to give tickets to big men, and many, many women are not seen as competing or good enough to bring this vote bank along with them. And we've had this recent case where in Mandya, a well-known, a very popular woman was not given a ticket, and therefore she left the party and actually then stood as an independent candidate and actually won the election. So this is one thing. The other effect is that many of these big men do not have allegiance to any single party at all. Since their focus is on consolidating wealth and power, they are the ones who can easily be bought. And we saw this very clearly in 2019 when the coalition government collapsed, and many of these people were actually bought, and we know large sums of money changed hands and a new government was formed. So the fluidity and the lack of democratic norms and the violation of some of the structures are happening because of this kind of political culture that has been fostered more and more, especially which we are seeing in Karnataka. So what is the impact? What kind of political culture are we seeing? I would like to list out several factors. One, which I mentioned briefly, is the style of functioning, extremely personalized politics, where occasionally there is appeasement of candidates. There is no professional processing of complaints. Very largely, there is no accountability. I think, Professor Verma, you pointed out very clearly and very well that the onus lies on us. And I think this is has been a major disadvantages that even we as citizens have not held our elected representatives accountable. For example, the few times I have petitioned the MLAs in my region, we've always been either ignored or dismissed as, foolish people saying foolish things and misleading people, etc. So the fact that there is no formal process where we can petition them and also get their responses and then highlight it to the media, I think also accounts for the fact that they remain very, very unaccountable to not only to the constituents, but to the larger system itself. A lot of government expenditure, which even if they do bring, is promoted not as coming from the state or from the government, but has their own personal largesse. For example, charitable activities, things that are given as part of welfare schemes, etc., very often have the pictures of these leaders or, or their photographs, or they have big splashes during the inaugural or during the times when this money or any amounts or schemes are dispersed. We see it particularly in the context of schools, in welfare schools, in physically challenged people, SC, ST, scholarship distribution, other scheme distributions, hostels, etc. So with the most disadvantaged groups, much of the schemes are captured and presented as personally given uh, rather than coming from the state. Professor Verma reminds me of MP LADs, the MP local area development funds, which are again used in a very personalized ways. For example, significant proportion of the funds have gone into setting up what are called samudaya bhavans. Most of them, once they are constructed, become ghost structures. They are very, very rarely used or used for any kind of really community activities, except a few which are rented out for occasional weddings, etc. So very significant misuse of the funds, but also personalizing the funds is what we see. If you look at the attendance at the Legislative Assembly, we also see very poor attendance. In 2018, when we did a review, Harish Narshappa and I from the organization, we found that only 12% of the elected represented legislators had 100% attendance. Some 32% had between 60 to 70%, and a large percentage, about 48 to 50%, had less than 40%. You've seen repeatedly every time the assembly meets, the speakers are inviting, besieging legislators, please come and attend the session, which is absurd. That is their primary role, to be in the sessions, to participate in legislative processes, but they are not there. In the case of some issues, when we had spoken to legislators, many of them didn't even know details of the bills that were being discussed. Oh, hauda, ee ತರ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಾ, ನಂಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ, ನಾನು ಹೋಗಿ ಓದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ, they would say that. I will read it and let you know later. But that is because not only are they not attending, they are not even following up on the details of the bills, of the issues that are important. As you saw in 2022 December, in the winter assembly, again, the speaker was requesting legislators to attend, and it showed that there was just between 60 to 70% attendance, and there was no like universal 100% attendance was not recorded even for a single day in the winter assembly. Some more key features in the way in which these leaders, these yajmanas are functioning is they also lead to the erosion of the key democratic structures and processes and to the institutions. For example, in Karnataka, through a lot of civil activities and some very good government functionaries set up what was called the democratic monitoring committees, which were for parents, especially in rural areas, to participate in the functioning of schools, because nowadays there's large amounts of funds sent through the panchayat into the schools. Many MLAs insist that it is their people, people from their vote bank who are members of these units or organizations, only so much so because there can be leakage through that into them. They are interfering in appointments, in transfers, and in access to resources at all levels, as a result of which very often they are bypassing rules and regulations of functioning of even large numbers of government bodies. For example, we know very well about the recent complaint by the PWD contractors who spoke about 40% commission, but they also influence the way in which the executives members are appointed to certain positions. They have developed what is called the revolving door policies. A person who has been in finance would then go to revenue, from revenue go back into PWD, would not come into anything which is considered low ranking like social welfare or etc. Keeping executives who would then kowtow to their norms and demands in place. And in some cases in Karnataka, we have examples where executives hold 5 to 6 portfolios, as to say a person can multitask and do justice to any of these departments by holding so many portfolios only. And this is possible only because the political apparatus endorses this and supports them. Finally, in the very big presence in Karnataka in the sectors of education and health, they have eroded the public state functioning of these two key institutions, only because they have their own parallel private institutions. This was very clear when, after years of very good ground level work, civil society organizations and the Congress tried to pass a bill called the Regulation of Karnataka Bill for Regulation of Medical Services. But so many legislators are invested in private hospitals and in private medical schools that they eroded, they challenged this, and the bill was not passed at all, as a result of which you have tremendous, not only corruption, but really a bleeding of the public because of not only ill health issues. And we saw the result of this during the pandemic, where the average cost of anyone who had suffered from COVID was something like 1.5 lakhs in some of the private hospitals. So this is, again, not only erosion of the thing, but to seek private interest through the legislative systems and not public good, which should have been one of the key goals of a good democracy. Two other points is most of them enjoy a culture of impunity, which both Arvind has elaborated very well, and Professor Verma also. They can indulge in hate speech, call for violence overtly, make misogynist statements against women, make anti-caste statements, indulge in violence even against certain persons, but all of which they would not be held accountable, and no punitive measures would be taken up against them. Finally, one other thing is, it is the lifestyle of some of this, a process of accumulation that has been encouraged, huge amounts. For example, of the top 10, 20 crore patis, you have an average of something like 700 crores is the assets. You can imagine the kind of lifestyles they have. That lifestyle is now endorsed, promoted not only through media, but seen as being powerful and successful, that a successful leader has 10 cars, imported cars. Somebody, a very innocent rural youth, was telling me, Madam, do you know he has a bulletproof car? Such appreciation for this kind of accumulation, instead of questioning it, really appreciating it, and therefore it legitimizes the way in which they're leading these opulent lives. They then, in that, becoming role models, justifying this kind of, not only corruption, but has this living has a sign of power and success. All of this also makes all of the ways in which they function, makes the whole system very unstable. We've seen what it has done, especially to Karnataka over the past 2 decades, where we've never been able to have a government that has come with very dominant majority and to be stable. But combining that with lack of accountability means that it is largely a culture of the Yajamanas, that they would then define and redefine rules to suit their own interests and not that of democracy. So largely the democratic deficits that we see can be associated with this. And I'd like to conclude by saying that a forum such as this, in the kind of a manifesto that we've made, I think it would not be out of place for us to insist that political parties seriously reconsider giving tickets to some of these Yajamanas who had no track record of building up the public good or upholding democratic norms and principles in many of these institutions. In addition, we should also look at the ways in which we as citizens need to recognize our responsibilities and come up with very decentralized, whether it is holding a village panchayat and therefore all elected representatives, even at that level, to the to the highest level, to the ministerial level, or to even to the chief minister, accountable, to have not only watch bodies, but to participate in those processes in which we hold our elected representatives responsible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Vasvi. You're very inspiring indeed. Your study of the political culture in Karnataka, the Yajmanas, the Satraps, and how they perform. It's actually money that rules rather than people that rule. Money coming out of real estate, construction schemes, mining, institutions, health and education. Almost every MLA and MP that I know is into these actions. And the way you studied and the way you presented it, how the system is so unaccountable, and they give government largesse as though it is personal favor and their own thing. And even if somebody wins a Nobel Prize in India, somebody else's photograph is larger than the one who actually won. So it's kind of personal. And you did mention the scanty attendance of our legislature sessions. But what you did not mention is what they do when they come in the attendance. They're watching movies on cell phone and quite ugly movies actually, and get caught and come back again. I mean, that's the shame of it all. Total impunity. Yes, Deputy Chief Minister, for all you know. Anyway, no taking names in that. It's kind of a funny place that we live in, but it's amazing why, with people like these, we do speak of, we have a Indian culture. Devara bhaya irbeku madam. ದೇವರ ಭಯ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂದರೆ ಕಮ್ ಸೆ ಕಮ್ ಪ್ರೊಫೆಸರ್ ವಾಸವಿ ಭಯ ಇರಬೇಕು, ನಮ್ಮ ಅಣ್ಣವ್ರ ಭಯ ಇರಬೇಕು, ಲಾಯರ್ ಭಯ ಇರಬೇಕು, ಇವರೆಲ್ಲ ನೋಡ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಭಯ ಇರಬೇಕು ಜನರಿಗೆ. ಅದು ಏನೂ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಏನು ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೂ ನಾವು ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. ಮನಿ ಸಬ್ಸೆ ಬಡ ರೂಪಾಯ ಬನಾ ಹೈ. It's a very, very sad story for this political culture. The Yajmana culture of Karnataka needs to be definitely changed. Thank you very much for that little presentation, Professor Vasvi. We move on, and I request Dr. Belgami Mohammed Saad, who is a urologist by profession. He's also the president of the Amir of the Jamaat-e-Islami Hind in Karnataka. He's going to speak on polarization as a tool for getting votes. Dr. Belgami.
I begin in the name of our Creator, most compassionate, most merciful, and invoking His blessings on also for the guide for the humanity. Indeed, this is a very important program which Fdca has arranged, and on the eve of Karnataka Assembly elections, which may be announced any time soon, Justice Nagmohan Das, co-panelists Professor Ravi Verma Kumar, Professor Deva Sahayam, Mr. Arvind Narayan, Professor Vasavi, Dr. Taha Mateen, Mr. Feroz Pasha Sahab, and all the other dignitaries here. Before I say a few words about the topic itself, polarization, I would like to premise it and remind in the beginning about a few aspects that we are all well aware of. So just a reminder would do. Number one, that our country is it's a plural society with a teeming population of 1.4 billion people, multi-religious, multicultural, multilingual, a federal country, rainbow of colors, and a garden of flowers, and so many other distinctive features which hold our country much higher in the Committee of Nations. The second thing that I would like to remind is about the wonderful constitution that we have been given. Our forefathers have taken pain to give us the best possible framework on which to conduct ourselves. And we, the people of India, have solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. And we all know of the high ideals that the constitution talks about: justice, social, economic, and political, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship, equality of status and opportunity, and fraternity, which is brotherhood assuring dignity of individual and unity and integrity of the nation. We have indeed a glorious constitution which guarantees rights not just to individuals but also to groups, gives us directive principles that we need to aim for. It talks about fundamental duties, among which is the spirit of harmony and brotherhood and dignity of women that are specifically mentioned. We are talking about Karnataka elections here, and elections, as we know, are the festivals of democracy. Election is a time when the different political parties are supposed to people go to the citizens of the country with their manifesto of how they would like to address the problems of people, how they would like to ensure justice and development of all sections of society, how They would like to make the country a welfare state and what good governance is all about. Election is a time when the political parties are supposed to address citizens as citizens, present policies and their values and the way they would like to attend to these issues, and work for universal values and principles. But unfortunately, democracy has several weaknesses, and we have seen over the past 75 years, and the experiment gets more difficult as we move ahead. And we are aware of several weaknesses that this election process and this real democracy is still to be achieved. The inadequate representation of several sections of the society, unfair representation of certain sections, the first past the post system, which allows, as mentioned, people with mandate of 20-30% to run roost with the country. We know about the anonymity of electoral bonds and the role that they have to play. The lack of proportional representation in a society which has so many sections and cultures and denominations. The criminalization, the corporatization, the role the money power plays, the populism that elections have come to represent, the exploitation, the propaganda that goes on, the biased and fake media that we have, and the way public opinion is, instead of being informed and educated, how it is misled. And we heard how the EVMs and the malpractices related to elections, the horse trading that goes on, which negates the whole idea of elections and contesting on their policies. All these issues that plague our democracy and the way our institutions are weakened is a matter of concern for us. But what is of importance today, and the topic that I have to say in a few words now, is about the polarization. We know that there are many fault lines, caste, for example, which are played upon by the political parties, and how they use it, exploit it to the hilt for their advantage and to gain votes and to remain and continue in power. However, more recently, what we have seen is the polarization of society in politics, which is driven by hate and the divisions of we and they, the othering of minorities, especially Muslims, and a false narrative of national pride being created, making an enemy of the 20% of the population, caricaturing them, stigmatizing them, symbolizing them, victimizing them, persecuting them, polarizing them, to create an artificial distances between people, which are then exploited at the hustings. This is something which is leading our democracy into its authoritarian version, and we are all aware of how the rule of 2+2 is endangering the entire itself. As Mr. Guha says, it is a dangerous and divisive and destructive that the polity here has taken under the present dispensation. I also would like to make a mention, while there is unapologetic majoritarian play here, the reactionary politics of the minority also wouldn't help the cause. It again feeds into the majoritarian politics, majoritarian agenda. This is something which is of concern to all of us who believe in democracy and who believe in justice and rule of law and equality and all those high ideals that our constitution talks about. Our state, Karnataka, is known for its peace, for its harmony, and for its tolerance and trust that exists between different sections of the people. Unfortunately, that is being greatly undermined, and the type of issues that are being raised today, be it hijab or the halal or the azan or the trading, the communal frenzy that is being brought about, and the type of slogans that our politicians are giving. When our Home Minister comes and talks about whether you would support Tipu Sultan or Ram Temple, or when Mr. Katil talks about love jihad as the real issue and not the problems that the common man faces, we are well aware of the polarization that it causes and the divisions that it creates in the society. So this is the real monster, the real danger that we have in current politics, and this needs to be addressed. It is the duty of forums like Fdca and our luminaries here to educate the people, to make them aware, to agitate for the right causes, and to create alternatives. What is the real idea of India? What is the India that our forefathers, Gandhiji, talked about or envisioned? There needs to be a mass movement to mobilize people for the real idea of India and bring forth the real questions that matter and the issues that are of real concern. The dangers that the majoritarian politics, the politics of polarization has to our values, to our economy, and to the social milieu, the communal harmony in our country is well known. Let us, on this occasion, when we have joined together here on the eve of elections, understand what these real issues are and try and see how we can provide an alternative idea and fight it on all levels, intellectually, socially, politically, at all levels we need to fight and develop the real idea of India that matters to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Balgami. We indeed must revive the real idea of India, of an inclusive society, and make a mass movement out of it, mobilizing people in a way that Gandhiji did and led this nation. The time is ripe for that. We're just about 45 minutes late. So the question and answer session is over. No, I'm just kidding. Obviously, the audience is very distinguished too. We have IS officers, we have academics, we have journalists, we have attorneys, we have lawyers, we have so many people here. So I do open the floor now for question and answers. My request that each one of us should be responsible, and democracy involves letting others also speak. Respect for each other and each other's space is important. So we don't take all the space. We have a few minutes or half an hour, so to say, that we can intervene, we can make a statement, and we can be brief questions and some nice answers from a distinguished panel. The floor is open. Thank you.
ಇವತ್ತಿನ ಸಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ಗೆ ಸಂಬಂಧಪಟ್ಟ ಸಬ್ ಕ್ವಶನ್ಸ್ ಕೇಳಿ ಆರ್ಗ್ಯುಮೆಂಟ್ರಿ ಏನು ವಿತ್ ದಿಸ್ ಬೇಸಿಕ್ ಪ್ರಿನ್ಸಿಪಲ್ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ನೌ
Kindly give a brief introduction as to who you are before you say, sir.
Azizullah Beg, former civil servant. My short question is in regard to constitution of the election commission. Election commission commissioners are being appointed by PM's office now, virtually. Should we not have a different system for the appointment of election commissioners, just like Chief Justice of India? Or can we not have a panel, as suggested by some, to have Chief Justice of India, President, Prime Minister, opposition leader, something like that? Should we not think about that? Because the root cause of election commission's failure is perhaps this system of directly appointment by the government.
Actually, this has been under discussion for a pretty long time, the collegium system. But the problem here is the system maybe, we have to streamline the system. But the individuals, number one, the kind of integrity and character and caliber of the individuals matter. Even within this system, officers were appointed and they did a fairly good job. And I don't want to mention names. But post 2015, things have been very, very bad. So even if the collegium is done, for instance, CBA director is appointed through a collegium. Even then, what they are doing with the... And here also we had one gentleman recently, again my junior, a very good friend of mine, Ashok Lavasa, who went for a dissenting kind of thing in 2019 election. The way he was hounded. He was hounded by the income tax, he was hounded by the ED, and his wife was hounded, his son was hounded, and he was forced to leave and he went away. The question is, the political leadership is today losing its character very fast. Any amount of system, I don't think is going to improve things. Basically, the character, the integrity of the person who is holding the job is important. But system does help. But I think the matter is before the Supreme Court. Arguments have already taken place. Probably Supreme Court will come out with some kind of viable solution to this.
Sir, I would like to, though you restricted me only one question, but little 2-3 questions I have. What we spoke today only.
We want to give opportunity as many as possible.
True, sir.
Please confine to one question.
Okay, sir. If that is the case, I would like to ask the PUCL people. My name is Anthony Vikram. I am the president for National Christian Unity Forum. Now, this is regarding this, especially about Garvapsi. Okay, conversion, they are saying the case can be filed. Why not Garvapsi also can? Why can't it be taken as a conversion? It's a right reconversion. Why that is not taken up as an issue and take it up by the PUCL on this matter?
I think the way we see it is go in accordance with what the Constitution lays down. Constitution has the idea that you have the right to profess and practice the religion of your choice. So the idea of conversion is actually central to the imagination of human rights. You have the right to transfer or move from one religion to the other religion. That's the law laid down by the Supreme Court. So I would think that the question of Garvapasi, you're pointing out to the fact that in the conversion law, there's an exception created for the so-called Garvapasi question. That is hits again the issue of equality. If you say equality, if you say why is one particular grouping allowed to convert, other groupings are not allowed to convert, and that's the equality question which we have to take up. I take your point well on that point.
सर रवि वर्मा कुमार जी. ಸರ್ ರವಿ ಕುಮಾರ್ ಜಿ ತಮ್ಮ ಮಾತಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು, ಕ್ರಿಮಿನಲ್ಗಳು ಆಳುವವರ ಸಾಲಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಮತ್ತು ಕಾನೂನು ರಚನೆಕಾರರ ಸಾಲಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುವಾಗ ಸ್ವಚ್ಛ ಆಡಳಿತ ಮತ್ತು ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ ಸಮಾನ ನ್ಯಾಯ ಹೇಗೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಹೇಳುವಂಥ ಒಂದು ವಿಷಯ ನಮ್ಮ ಮುನ್ನೆಲೆಗೆ ಬರ್ತದೆ. ಆದರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಚುನಾವಣಾ ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ವಿಫಲವಾಗಿ ಇರುವಾಗ ಸೊ ಇದನ್ನು ಹೇಗೆ ನಿಭಾಯಿಸ್ಬೋದು ಸರ್? ಇದನ್ನು ಹೇಗೆ ತಡಿಬಹುದು? ಇದಕ್ಕೇನಾದರೂ ಸಾಧ್ಯವಾ ತಡಿಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಇವರನ್ನು?
ಇದು ರಾತ್ರಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ರಾಮಾಯಣ ಕೇಳಿ ಬೆಳಿಗ್ಗೆ ರಾಮನ್ಗುಸಿ ನಾವು ಇಷ್ಟೊತ್ತು ಮಾತಾಡಿದ್ದೆಲ್ಲ ಅದೇನೆ. ಇದು ನಾವು ರಿಪೇರಿ ಆಗದೆ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ರಿಪೇರಿ ಆಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ವಿ ಶುಡ್ ಟೇಕ್ ಎ ವೋ ದಟ್ ವಿ ವಿಲ್ ನಾಟ್ ಸಕಮ್ ಟು ಬ್ರೈಬರಿ, ಕಾಸ್ಟಿಸಮ್, ಕಮ್ಯುನಲಿಸಮ್. If we don't ourselves stand firm on our convictions, nothing can save this system. This is my simple answer to your question.
Good morning, sirs. This question is to Mr. Dev Saham. Sir, in elections are the fundamental basic requirement for a democracy. In your book you say that you have, but very unfortunately this book is not read by many people, even though it is very valuable. My question is, you say in Election Commission of India there are your own brothers, IAS officers, who are very brilliant, who are supposed to be independent, but unfortunately they are towing the line of the government at the present. When they give, you say they are giving false affidavit in Supreme Court. Can't they be tried for perjury?
Hello. The perjury decision has to be taken by the court itself. In fact, in this case, in the Supreme Court, as soon as the argument was there, advocates were standing there, I had filed a counter affidavit saying that it is perjury. We had evidence. 2 perjury they committed, 2, not 1. One is about the ISA report, one is about this. But the court just ignored it. They did not even listen. They just ignored it. The perjury is against the court. And it is the court who have to take cognizance. Absolutely you are right, but unfortunately that is not happening.
I am Dr. Shanbag V.S., retired banker and present Bar Council member and High Court Unit Association. I have a small question to Sri Devasayam sir. Whether the electoral process by manually or through ballot or by the EMS makes any difference in the final results of the election results, and whether the People of Representation Act 1951 gives the immediate right to for the Election Commission to make any amendments or changes.
Election Commission can make lot of improvements in the process and procedure. But there are certain areas where there is a specific act or a rule, they have to comply with the act and the rule. They cannot do it on themselves. In this case, an amendment was made to shift from paper ballot to EVM, and Parliament only can go back to the paper ballot. But within the EVM system, Election Commission has got vast powers. There has been a catena of Supreme Court judgments that where there is no specific rule or law. Election Commission has got plenipotentiary powers under Article 324 of the Constitution to act in good faith in the interest of free and fair election. What we are trying to say, the counting process all comes under that. You can't keep on going back to Parliament every time. Election Commission has got full powers to decide what kind of counting should take place. They can order the full 100% VVPAT counting. They can. But they are not doing it. That's a tragedy. They have full powers. They don't have to go back to the government. If you have to go back to the paper ballot, yes, they have to go back to the Parliament. But then they are not doing it. The second question that you asked is, makes a difference? It does really make a difference. Manual voting and machine voting is vastly different. So, at the end of the day, as I said, the democracy principles can be complied with, but it can be complied with even with the EVM. But proper, the Election Commission has to respond to the people discussion. See, we have put together a very strong technical team. Election Commission should have asked, come and discuss with us. And they could have convinced them, but they will not. They are afraid. The very fact that they are afraid, they don't want to respond, means they are trying to hide something. That's a tragedy.
Yes, please.
Yeah, the point I think with Justice Dhulia's opinion is very important. He gets outside the bind of the essential practices test. He says you have to understand the fact that the Constitution is, Article 25 is one provision, but also Article 19(1)(a), the right to expression. Right to expression includes the right to wear dress. Right to, Article 21, right to 21(a) says right to education is a fundamental right. So when you see all these other rights in consonance, his simple point is you can't sacrifice your right to education at the altar of an arbitrary prescription which limits your range of fundamental rights. When you limit your right to dress, you limit your right to dignity, you limit your right to expression, you limit your right to education.
ಎಲ್ಲ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಗಳು ಮುಗಿದಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಅಂದ್ಕೋಬೋದಲ್ಲ?
ಇದೊಂದು ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಇದೆ ಸರ್, ಒಂದು ಇಸ್ ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಕ್ವಶನ್.
Please.
Sir, my name is Maksud Muniyar. I am from News Trail. We are a newspaper based here in Bangalore. I would like to ask a question to Mr. Devasahayam. Sir, you spoke at length about how EVMs are not infallible and they are prone to tampering and what have you. Don't you think that the main challenge facing the nation is the ideology of the ruling party and the choice that the voters are in fact making? Even if in a vacuum, if we were to imagine a world where all of the issues concerning EVMs are, sort of sorted, wouldn't voters make the same choice and BJP would continue getting huge mandates at states and the union level? Thank you.
See, it's a loaded question, but let me respond. It is not BJP, Congress, ABCD. It is a system of election. I told you the democracy principles are sacrosanct. Unless the electoral system satisfies the democracy principles, as I told you, cast as intended, recorded as cast, counted as recorded. These are not available under the EVM system. Now, ideology, political parties may have any ideology. It is for the people to endorse or not. So people must be given full choice, full opportunity. Machine cannot decide the ideology. Now what is happening is machine is deciding. Manipulation deciding, I don't want to go into detail. Some people have got doubt as to how this manipulation takes place. I will be able to tell you. But that should be on a separate discussion. Exactly how elections are being manipulated. 2019 election was manipulated. Immediately after the election was over, ADR made a thorough analysis and filed a writ petition in the Supreme Court. In 342 seats, there were disparity, mismatch in counting. Votes polled, votes counted. There was disparity. In some constituencies, it was more than the winning margin. The matter is lying 4 years. It's more than 4 years. The matter is lying in the Supreme Court. They have not given even a kind of listing. Okay. The point I am trying to make is, you may have any ideology, but we must have the majority of the people approving their ideology. Second point is a related point. Sorry, I am taking a little more time. See, what is democracy? I don't know how many of you have heard of the social contract theory, Hobbes, Rousseau, and others. Majority of the governed. Unless you have the mandate of the majority of the governed, you have no right, legal or moral right, to enact any law or enforce any law. So what is the majority of the governed? It must be majority of the population. No, we are not saying. It must be majority of the electorate. That's why in almost all democracies, we have several rounds of election till the president gets elected by more than 50% votes. Then even in a small country like Sri Lanka, has got proportional representation. Ours is the representative and only 25% of the electorate. And there are other countries which have got this problem. They have direct democracy. We have no direct democracy. No referendum, nothing. So our democracy itself is defective. And then you don't give an opportunity for people to vote, seeing with their own eyes, doing something. You press something in the machine, you count something in the machine. So the electoral system, in my view, is not the kind of system we are talking about, free and fair election. So in my view, the basic structure of the constitution is being violated. India is not having a free and fair election system under the machine. All the other things that is said, everyone said is all known. Criminal power, money power, this communal, all kind of things. But added to that is this machine voting, which completely takes away the concept of people's democracy.
ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. ನನ್ನ ಹೆಸರು ನಾಗರಾಜ್ ಅಂತೇಳಿ, ನಾನು ವಿದ್ಯುತ್ ಗುತ್ತಿಗೆದಾರನಾಗಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ಸ್ನೇಹಿತರೆ, ನಂದು ಒಂದೇ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ. ಇಡೀ ನಮ್ಮ ರಾಜ್ಯ ದೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ ಕಾರ್ಯಾಂಗ, ನ್ಯಾಯಾಂಗ ಅಥವಾ ಶಾಸಕಾಂಗ ಇರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ನಮ್ಮ ದೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ ಈ CBI ಮತ್ತು ED ಮತ್ತು EC ಮತ್ತು ಎಲ್ಲ ಒಂದು ವರ್ಗದ ಎಲ್ಲ ಒಂದು ದಷ್ಟ ಅಧಿಕಾರಿಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಇರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಒಂದು ನಮ್ಮ ದೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ, ರಾಜ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಹಿಂದೆ ಇದ್ದಕ್ಕಂಥ ನಮ್ಮ ಚುನಾವಣಾ TR ಶೇಷನ್ ಅವರು ಹೇಗೆ ಇಡೀ ದೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ ಅವರು ಪ್ರಸಾರವಾಗಿದ್ದರು, ಅವರ ಹೆಸರು, ಅವರ ಕಾರ್ಯವೈಖರಿಗಳು ಎಲ್ಲ ಇಡೀ ಜನ ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಂದು ಮೂಲೆಗೂ ಅವರ ಹೆಸರು ಪ್ರಸಾರ ಆಗ್ತಾಯಿತ್ತು. ಹೀಗೆ ಏಕೆ ಆ ಒಂದು ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾರು ಅದನ್ನು ಸರಿಯಾಗಿ ನಿರ್ವಹಿಸ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ವಾ ಚುನಾವಣೆ ಒಂದು ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಅಂತೇಳಿ ನನ್ನ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಅದು. ತಮಗೇನೆ ಸರ್, ತಮಗೇನೆ.
ಸ್ನೇಹಿತರೆ, ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಆನ್ಸರ್ ಸೆಷನ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಮುಗಿಸೋಣ. ಟೈಮ್ ಈಸ್ ಗೆಟಿಂಗ್ ಅಪ್. I can't refuse to a lady. Please.
One question, sir. Last request.
Because in my court, balance of justice always treats in favor of a woman.
Sir, last question,
Please,
sir.
please.
Request. Bolu.
Yeah. Definitely, it is not a question. It is an addition. We respectfully take it. ಸ್ನೇಹಿತರೆ, 4 ರವಿವರ್ಮ ಕುಮಾರ್ ಅವರು, ದೇವಶಂನವರು, ಅರವಿಂದ್ ನಾರಾಯಣ್, ವಾಸವಿ ಮೇಡಮ್ ಅವರು, ಬೆಳಗಾವಿಯವರು ಎಲ್ಲ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಮಾತಾಡಿ ಒಳ್ಳೆ ವಿಚಾರಗಳನ್ನು ಮಂಡಿಸಿದರು. ಅರವಿಂದ್ ನಾರಾಯಣ್ ಅವರು ಈ ಮನಿ ಪವರ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಇನ್ನು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಬೆಳಕು ಚೆಲ್ಲಿದ್ರೆ ಭಾಳ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿತ್ತು. ಅವರು ಅದನ್ನು ಟಚ್ ಮಾಡಲಿಲ್ಲ, ಇರಲಿ. ಆದರೆ ಬೇರೆಯವರು ಅದನ್ನು ಟಚ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು. ಅವರೆಲ್ಲರ ಅಭಿಪ್ರಾಯಗಳನ್ನು ಬಹುಪಾಲು ಒಪ್ತಾನೆ ಒಂದು 2-3 ವಿಚಾರಗಳನ್ನು ನಿಮಗೆ ತಾರೆ. ನಮ್ಮ ಸ್ವಾತಂತ್ರ್ಯ ಹೋರಾಟದಲ್ಲಿ ಅನೇಕ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಗಳು ನಮ್ಮ ಮುಂದೆ ಎದುರಾದವು. ಆ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಗಳನ್ನು ಈ ದೇಶದ ಜನರು ಚರ್ಚೆ ಮಾಡಿದರು, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಉತ್ತರವನ್ನು ಕೊಂಡುಕೊಂಡ್ರು. ಆ ಉತ್ತರಗಳೇ ರಾಷ್ಟ್ರೀಯ ಚಳುವಳಿಯ ಗುರಿಗಳಾದ. ಆ ಗುರಿಗಳನ್ನು ನಮ್ಮ ಹಿರಿಯರು ನಮ್ಮ ಸಂವಿಧಾನದಲ್ಲಿ ಸೇರಿಸಿದ್ರು. ಆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಗಳಿಗೆ ನಾನು ಹೋಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಇವತ್ತು ಈ ರೌಂಡ್ ಟೇಬಲ್ ಕಾನ್ಫರೆನ್ಸ್ಗೆ ಸಂಬಂಧಪಟ್ಟಂಥ ಒಂದೇ ಒಂದು ಇಶ್ಯೂ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ನಾನು ಸ್ವಾತಂತ್ರ್ಯ ಬಂದ ನಂತರ ರಾಜಕೀಯ ಅಧಿಕಾರ ಯಾರ ಕೈಗೆ ಹೋಗಬೇಕು? ಮಹಾತ್ಮ ಗಾಂಧಿಯವರನ್ನು ಒಬ್ಬ ಸಾಮ್ರಾಟ್ನನ್ನಾಗಿ ಮಾಡೋಣವಾ? ಜವಾಹರ್ಲಾಲ್ ನೆಹರು ಅವರನ್ನು ಒಬ್ಬ ಚಕ್ರವರ್ತಿಯನ್ನಾಗಿ ಮಾಡೋಣವಾ? ಪಟೇಲ್ ಅವರನ್ನು ಒಬ್ಬ ರಾಜನನ್ನಾಗಿ ಮಾಡೋಣವಾ ಅನ್ನೋ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಸ್ವತಂತ್ರ ಚಳುವಳಿಯ ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ದೇಶದ ಜನ ಎದುರಿಸಿದಂಥ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ. ಅವರು ಚರ್ಚೆ ಮಾಡಿ ಒಂದು ಉತ್ತರವನ್ನು ಕೊಂಡ್ಕೊಟ್ರು. ಏನು? ನಮಗೆ ಸಾಮ್ರಾಟರು ಬೇಡ, ಚಕ್ರವರ್ತಿಗಳು ಬೇಡ, ರಾಜ ಮಹಾರಾಜರು ಬೇಡ, ಪಾಳೆಗಾರಿ ಪದ್ಧತಿ ರದ್ದಾಗಬೇಕು, ರಾಜಕೀಯ ಅಧಿಕಾರ ಪ್ರಜೆಗಳ ಕೈಗೆ ಬರಬೇಕು. ಈ ರೀತಿ ಪ್ರಜಾಪ್ರಭುತ್ವ ಅಂತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಒಂದು ಬೀಜನ ಸ್ವತಂತ್ರ ಹೋರಾಟದಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ದೇಶದ ಜನ ಬಿತ್ತಿದ್ರು. ಅದು ನಮ್ಮ ಸಂವಿಧಾನ ರಚನೆಕಾರರು ನಮ್ಮ ಸಂವಿಧಾನದಲ್ಲಿ ಸೇರಿಸಿ ಈ ದೇಶನ ಪ್ರಜಾಪ್ರಭುತ್ವ ದೇಶವನ್ನಾಗಿ ಕಟ್ಟಬೇಕು ಅಂತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು ನಮ್ಮ ಸಂವಿಧಾನದ ಆಶೆ. ಈ ರೀತಿ ಪಾಳೆಗಾರಿ ಪದ್ಧತಿಯನ್ನು ರದ್ದುಪಡಿಸಿ ಸಂವಿಧಾನ ಜಾರಿಗೆ ಬಂದ ನಂತರ ನಾವು ಪ್ರಜಾಪ್ರಭುತ್ವ ಸಂಸ್ಥೆಗಳನ್ನು ಈ ದೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ ಕಟ್ಟಿದ್ವಿ. ಈ ಪ್ರಜಾಪ್ರಭುತ್ವ ಅಂದರೆ ಅನೇಕ ಜನರು, ನಾವೆಲ್ಲ ಮಿಡ್ಲ್ ಸ್ಕೂಲ್ ಹೈಸ್ಕೂಲ್ನಲ್ಲಿದ್ದಾಗ ಫಾರ್ ದಿ ಪೀಪಲ್, ಬೈ ದಿ ಪೀಪಲ್, ಟು ದಿ ಪೀಪಲ್ ಅಂತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದನ್ನು ಓದಿದ್ವಿ. ಅಷ್ಟೇನಾ ಅಂತಂದರೆ ಅಲ್ಲ. ದೇರ್ ಕೆನಾಟ್ ಬಿ ಎ ಡೆಮಾಕ್ರಸಿ ವಿತೌಟ್ ಡೆಮೊಕ್ರೆಟಿಕ್ ಇನ್ಸ್ಟಿಟ್ಯೂಷನ್ಸ್. ದೇರ್ ಕೆನಾಟ್ ಬಿ ಎ ಡೆಮಾಕ್ರಸಿ ವಿತೌಟ್ ಡೆಮೊಕ್ರೆಟಿಕ್ ರೈಟ್ಸ್. ದೇರ್ ಕೆನಾಟ್ ಬಿ ಎ ಡೆಮಾಕ್ರಸಿ ವಿತೌಟ್ ಡೆಮೊಕ್ರೆಟಿಕ್ ರಿಫಾರ್ಮ್ಸ್. ಇದನ್ನು ನಾವು ಗಂಭೀರವಾಗಿ ನಾವು ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡೋದು. ಅದರ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಅಂಬೇಡ್ಕರ್ ಅಭಿಪ್ರಾಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರಜಾಪ್ರಭುತ್ವ ಅಂದರೆ ಕೇವಲ ರಾಜಕೀಯ ಪ್ರಜಾಪ್ರಭುತ್ವ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಆರ್ಥಿಕ ಪ್ರಜಾಪ್ರಭುತ್ವ ಮತ್ತು ಸಾಮಾಜಿಕ ಪ್ರಭುತ್ವ ಕೂಡ ಭಾರತ ಸಂವಿಧಾನದ ಪ್ರಜಾಪ್ರಭುತ್ವದಲ್ಲಿ ಅಡಗಿದೆ. ದುರಾದೃಷ್ಟವಶಾತ್ ಕಳೆದ 73 ವರ್ಷಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ರಾಜಕೀಯ ಪ್ರಜಾಪ್ರಭುತ್ವ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಮಾತಾಡಿದಿವೆ ಹೊರತು ರಾಜಕೀಯ ಪ್ರಜಾಪ್ರಭುತ್ವವನ್ನು ಆರ್ಥಿಕ ಪ್ರಜಾಪ್ರಭುತ್ವಕ್ಕೆ, ಸಾಮಾಜಿಕ ಪ್ರಭುತ್ವಕ್ಕೆ ಸಮೀಕರಿಸಲೇ ಇಲ್ಲ. ವಿ ಫೇಲ್ ಟು ಲಿಂಕ್ ದಿ ಪೊಲಿಟಿಕಲ್ ಡೆಮಾಕ್ರಸಿ ಟು ಎಕನಾಮಿಕ್ ಡೆಮಾಕ್ರಸಿ ಅಂಡ್ ಸೋಷಿಯಲ್ ಡೆಮಾಕ್ರಸಿ. ಹಾಗಾಗಿನೇ ಇವತ್ತು ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಬೆಳಗಾವಿ ಅವರು ಹೇಳಿದಂಗೆ ಎಮೋಷನಲ್ ಇಶ್ಯೂಸ್ ಆರ್ ಡಾಮಿನೇಟಿಂಗ್ ದಿ ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಲೈಫ್, ನಾಟ್ ದಿ ಇಶ್ಯೂಸ್ ರಿಲೇಟಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಲೈಫ್. ಬಡತನದ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಚರ್ಚೆ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಅನಕ್ಷರತೆ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಚರ್ಚೆ ಇಲ್ಲ, ನಿರುದ್ಯೋಗದ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಚರ್ಚೆ ಇಲ್ಲ, ದಲಿತರ ಮೇಲೆ ದೌರ್ಜನ್ಯದ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಚರ್ಚೆ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಅಲ್ಪಸಂಖ್ಯಾತರ ಅಭದ್ರತೆ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಚರ್ಚೆ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಆದರೆ ಇವತ್ತು ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಇಶ್ಯೂಗಳು ಇವತ್ತು ನಮ್ಮನ್ನು ಡಾಮಿನೇಟ್. ಎಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಬಂದರೆ ನಾವೆಲ್ಲ ಚರ್ಚೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ. ಅದರ ಜೊತೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ಹೇಳ್ದಂಗೆ ಡೆಮಾಕ್ರೆಟಿಕ್ ಇನ್ಸ್ಟಿಟ್ಯೂಷನ್ಸನ್ನು ನಾವು ಕಟ್ಟಿದ್ವಿ, ಬೆಳೆಸಿದ್ವಿ. ಅದು ಸಮರ್ಪಕವಾದಂಥ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡಿತ್ತು. ಆದರೆ ದುರಾದೃಷ್ಟವಶಾತ್ ಇವತ್ತು ಅವು ಬಲಹೀನಗೊಳ್ತಾయి. ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಪಾರ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟ್, ಎಕ್ಸಿಕ್ಯೂಟಿವ್, ಈವನ್ ಜುಡಿಷಿಯರಿ ಈಸ್ ಅಂಡರ್ ಅಟ್ಯಾಕ್. ಎವರಿ ಡೆಮೋಕ್ರೆಟಿಕ್ ಇನ್ಸ್ಟಿಟ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಈಸ್ ಬೀಯಿಂಗ್ ವೀಕನ್ ಡೇ ಬೈ ಡೇ. ಇದನ್ನು ನಾವು ಗಮನಿಸಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಪ್ರಜಾಪ್ರಭುತ್ವ ನಮಗೆ ಬಹಳ ಮುಖ್ಯ. ನಾವಿಷ್ಟೆಲ್ಲ ಪ್ರಜಾಪ್ರಭುತ್ವದ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಏನೇನೋ ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಅಂಥ ಲೋಪದೋಷ ಇದೆ, ಇಂಥ ಲೋಪದೋಷ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ. ನಿಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾರಾದರೂ ಪ್ರಜಾಪ್ರಭುತ್ವಕ್ಕೆ ಆಲ್ಟರ್ನೇಟಿವ್ ಇದೆಯಾ? ಪ್ಲೀಸ್ ಸಜೆಸ್ಟ್. ಇಸ್ ದೇರ್ ಅನ್ ಆಲ್ಟರ್ನೇಟಿವ್ ಟು ಪಾರ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟರಿ ಡೆಮಾಕ್ರಸಿ ಇನ್ ಇಂಡಿಯಾ? ನೋ, ನೋಬಡಿ ಈಸ್ ಟಾಕಿಂಗ್ ಅಬೌಟ್. ನನ್ನ ಅಭಿಪ್ರಾಯದಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ ಪಾರ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟರಿ ಡೆಮಾಕ್ರಸಿಗೆ ಪರ್ಯಾಯ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಆದರೆ ಈ ಪಾರ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟರಿ ಡೆಮಾಕ್ರಸಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಇಷ್ಟೆಲ್ಲ ವೀಕ್ನೆಸ್ ಇದಿಲ್ಲ. ಇದು ಪ್ರಧಾನವಾದಂಥ ಕಾರಣ ಏನು ಅಂತಂದರೆ ಎಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್. ದೇರ್ ಕೆನಾಟ್ ಬಿ ಎ ಡೆಮಾಕ್ರಸಿ ವಿಥೌಟ್ ಎಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್. ಆದರೆ ಎಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಏನಾಗಿದೆ ಇವತ್ತು? ರಿಲಿಜನ್, ಕ್ಯಾಸ್ಟ್, ಮನಿ ಪವರ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಮಸಲ್ ಪವರ್ ಆಕ್ರಮಿಸಿಕೊಂಡಿದೆ. ಇದು ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಂದು ಕ್ಷೇತ್ರದಲ್ಲೂ ನಾವು ಇದನ್ನು ನೋಡ್ಬೋದು. ಎಲ್ಲ ಭಾಷಣಕಾರರ ಮಾತುಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಆ ಸಂದರ್ಭಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವೇನು ಮಾಡಿ, ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ನಾವು ಲಾಂಗ್ ಟರ್ಮ್ ಮೆಜರ್ಸ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆನೂ ಚರ್ಚೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ, ಶಾರ್ಟ್ ಟರ್ಮ್ ಮೆಜರ್ಸ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆನೂ ನಾವು ಚರ್ಚೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಇವತ್ತಿನ ಈ ದುಂಡು ಮೇಜಿನ ಸಭೆ ಒಂದು ಸಣ್ಣ ಪ್ರಯತ್ನ, ಆದರೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕೊನೆ ಆಗಬಾರ್ದು. ಈ ದುಂಡು ಮೇಜಿನ ಚರ್ಚೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇವತ್ತು ನಾವು ಒಂದಷ್ಟು ತೀರ್ಮಾನಕ್ಕೆ ಬರಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ. ಒಂದು, ನಾಳೆ ಬರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಚುನಾವಣೆ ಎದುರಿಸ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಶಾರ್ಟ್ ಟರ್ಮ್ ಮೆಜರ್ಸ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆನೂ ನಾವೊಂದು ತೀರ್ಮಾನ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ, ಲಾಂಗ್ ಟರ್ಮ್ ಮೆಜರ್ಸನ್ನು ಅಂತೀವಿ. ಆ ಎಲ್ಲ ವಿವರಗಳನ್ನು ನಾನು ಹೇಳೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಆದರೆ ನನ್ನ ಅಭಿಪ್ರಾಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಕೆಲವು ಅತ್ಯವಶ್ಯಕವಾಗಿ ಬೇಕಾಗಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಕೆಲವು ಸುಧಾರಣೆಗಳನ್ನು ಮಾತ್ರ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮುಂದೆ ಹೇಳಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಇಷ್ಟಪಡ್ತೀನಿ. ಮತಗಳ ಪ್ರಮಾಣ ಅನುಸಾರ ಪ್ರಾತಿನಿಧ್ಯ ಪದ್ಧತಿ ಜಾರಿಗೆ ತರಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ. ಪ್ರಪೋರ್ಷನಲ್ ರೆಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟೇಷನ್ ಅದು ಅನೇಕ ಈ ಅನಿಷ್ಟಗಳಿಗೆ ಒಂದು ಪರಿಹಾರನ ಸೂಚಿಸಬಹುದು. ನನ್ನ ಅಭಿಪ್ರಾಯ ಅದು ಚರ್ಚೆ ಆಗಬೇಕು. ಅಭ್ಯರ್ಥಿ ಸ್ಥಾನ ತೆರವಾದರೆ ಎರಡನೇ ಸ್ಥಾನದಲ್ಲಿರುವ ಅಭ್ಯರ್ಥಿಯನ್ನು ಪ್ರತಿನಿಧಿ ಎಂದು ಘೋಷಿಸಿ ಮರುಚುನಾವಣೆಯನ್ನು ತಪ್ಪಿಸಬೇಕು. ಆಯ್ಕೆಯಾದ ಅಭ್ಯರ್ಥಿ ಜನರ ಆಶೋತ್ತರಗಳಿಗೆ ಸ್ಪಂದಿಸದೇ ಇದ್ದರೆ, ಭ್ರಷ್ಟರಾದರೆ, ದುರಾಡಳಿತದಲ್ಲಿ ತೊಡಗಿದರೆ ಅಂತಹ ಅಭ್ಯರ್ಥಿಯನ್ನು ಹಿಂದಕ್ಕೆ ಕರೆಸಿಕೊಳ್ಳುವ ಪದ್ಧತಿಯನ್ನು ಜಾರಿಗೆ ತರಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ. ರಾಜಕೀಯ ಪಕ್ಷಗಳು ತಮ್ಮ ವರಮಾನ, ಖರ್ಚು, ವೆಚ್ಚಗಳ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಆಡಿಟ್ ಲೆಕ್ಕವನ್ನು ದೇಶದ ಜನತೆಯ ಮುಂದೆ ನೀಡಬೇಕು. ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿಗಳು, ಕಂಪನಿಗಳು ಇತ್ಯಾದಿಗಳು ರಾಜಕೀಯ ಪಕ್ಷಗಳೇ ನೀಡುವ ದೇಣಿಗೆಯೂ ಸಹ ಆಡಿಟ್ ಲೆಕ್ಕವನ್ನು ನೀಡಬೇಕು. ಪಕ್ಷಾಂತರ ಮೇಲೆ ಮತ್ತೆ ಗೆದ್ದ ಸ್ಥಾನಕ್ಕೆ ರಾಜೀನಾಮೆ ಕೊಡುವ ಅಭ್ಯರ್ಥಿಗಳ ಚುನಾವಣೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಪರ್ಧಿಸಿದಂತೆ 10 ವರ್ಷ ನಿಷೇಧ ಹೇರಬೇಕು ಮತ್ತು ಚುನಾವಣಾ ವೆಚ್ಚವನ್ನು ಅವರಿಂದ ವಸೂಲಿ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಪ್ರಜಾಪ್ರಾತಿನಿಧ್ಯದ ಕಾಯ್ದೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ತಿಳಿಯಪಡಿಸಿರುವ ಅಪರಾಧಗಳು ಸಂಬಂಧಿಸಿ ಕ್ರಿಮಿನಲ್ ಮೊಕದ್ದಮೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಅಪರಾಧವೆಸಗಿದ್ದರೆ ಅಂತ ಅವರ ಮೇಲೆ ನ್ಯಾಯಾಲಯ ತೀರ್ಪು ನೀಡಿದರೆ ಅಥವಾ ರೌಡಿ ಶೀಟ್ ಎಂದು ಘೋಷಿಸಲ್ಪಟ್ಟವರನ್ನು ಚುನಾವಣೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಪರ್ಧಿಸದಂತೆ ನಿಷೇಧಿಸಬೇಕು. ಧರ್ಮ, ಜಾತಿ, ಭಾಷೆ ಹಾಗೂ ಪ್ರಾಂತ್ಯದ ಹೆಸರಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಜನರ ಐಕ್ಯತೆಯನ್ನು ಮುರಿಯುವ, ವಿಷವನ್ನು ಬಿತ್ತುವ, ಭಯ, ಅಭದ್ರತೆ, ಹಿಂಸೆ, ದ್ವೇಷವನ್ನು ಹುಟ್ಟಾಕುವ ಯಾವುದೇ ರಾಜಕೀಯ ಪ್ರಚೋದನೆಯನ್ನು ಮಟ್ಟ ಹಾಕಬೇಕು. ಮಾಧ್ಯಮಗಳು ಹಣಕ್ಕಾಗಿ ತಮ್ಮನ್ನು ತಾವು ಮಾರಿಕೊಳ್ಳಬಾರದು. ಪಕ್ಷಾತೀತವಾಗಿ ಕಾರ್ಯನಿರ್ವಹಿಸಿ ಜನಹಿತವನ್ನು ಕಾಪಾಡಬೇಕು. ತಾಂತ್ರಿಕ ಕಾರಣಗಳಿವೆ. ಚುನಾವಣೆ ತಕರಾರು ಅರ್ಜಿಗಳನ್ನು ವಜಾ ಮಾಡೋದು ನ್ಯಾಯಾಲಯಗಳು ನಿಲ್ಲಿಸಬೇಕು. ಸತ್ಯವನ್ನು ಕಂಡುಹಿಡಿದು ವ್ಯಾಜ್ಯಗಳನ್ನು ಬೇಗ ಇತ್ಯರ್ಥಗೊಳಿಸಬೇಕು. ಲೋಕಸಭೆ, ರಾಜ್ಯಸಭೆ ಮತ್ತು ರಾಜ್ಯ ಶಾಸನಸಭೆಗಳ ಮಹಿಳಾ ಮೀಸಲಾತಿ ಜಾರಿಗೊಳಿಸಬೇಕು. ಮೀಸಲು ಸ್ಥಾನಗಳನ್ನು ರೊಟೇಷನ್ ಪದ್ಧತಿಯ ಮೇಲೆ ಅಳವಡಿಸ್ಕೋಬೇಕು. ಈಗಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಎಲ್ಲ ಅನಿಷ್ಟಗಳನ್ನು ನಿಯಂತ್ರಣಕ್ಕೆ ತರುವುದಕ್ಕೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಮುಂದೆ ಇರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು ಎರಡೇ ಕಾಯ್ದೆ, ರೆಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟೇಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ಪೀಪಲ್ಸ್ ಆ್ಯಕ್ಟ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಆಂಟಿ ಡಿಫೆಕ್ಷನ್. ಈ ಎರಡೇ ಕಾಯ್ದೆಗಳು ದಿ ಫೇಲ್ಡ್ ಅಸ್. There are no certain provisions with regard to certain issues that has cropped up in the present day politics. ನಾವು ಚಾಪೆ ಕೆಳಗಡೆ ದೂಳ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಅವ್ರ ರಾಜಕಾರಣಿಗಳು ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ ನಾವು ರಂಗೋಲಿ ಕೆಳಗಡೆ ದೂಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಆಂಟಿ ಡಿಫೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಲಾ ತಂದ್ರು, ಆದರೆ ಆಪರೇಷನ್ ಅಂತಕ್ಕಂಥ ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆ ಜಾರಿಗೆ ತಂದ್ರು. ಅದನ್ನ ನೀವು ಕಮಲ ಅಂತಾನೂ ಆಗ್ಬೋದು, ಬೇರೆ ಪಕ್ಷಗಳ ಸಿಂಬಲ್ಸು ಸೇರಿಸ್ಕೋಬೋದು. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಈ ರಾಜಕಾರಣದಲ್ಲಿ ತೊಡಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಅವ್ರು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ತೊಡಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ರಾಜ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಮೆಜಾರಿಟಿ ಇರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಆಟೋಮೆಟಿಕ್ ಆಗಿ ಮೈನಾರಿಟಿ ಆಗೋಯ್ತು. ಮೈನಾರಿಟಿ ಇರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಮೆಜಾರಿಟಿ ಆಗೋಯ್ತು. ಡಾಕ್ಟ್ರೆ, ಎಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ನಡೀಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಎಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ನಡೆದೆ ಮೆಜಾರಿಟಿ ಮೈನಾರಿಟಿ ಆಗೋಗುತ್ತೆ, ಮೈನಾರಿಟಿ ಮೆಜಾರಿಟಿ. ವಾಟ್ ಡಿಡ್ ದಿ ಸುಪ್ರೀಂ ಕೋರ್ಟ್ ಡಿಡ್? No, ಸುಪ್ರೀಂ ಕೋರ್ಟ್ ಮಿಸ್ ದಿ ಗೋಲ್ಡನ್ ಆಪರ್ಚುನಿಟಿ ಟು ಲೈಟ್ ಡೌನ್ ಎ ಲಾ. ಇಂಥ ಅನಿಷ್ಟಗಳ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ನ್ಯಾಯಾಂಗ ತನ್ನ ಹೆಚ್ಚು ಕ್ರಿಯಾಶೀಲತೆಯನ್ನು ನನ್ನ ವಿಶ್ವಾಸ. ಆದರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಚರ್ಚೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ಮುರಿಗಬಾರ್ದು, ಇದು ಮುಂದುವರಿದು. ಆ ದಿಕ್ಕಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಫೋರಮ್ ಫಾರ್ ಡೆಮಾಕ್ರಸಿ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಕಮ್ಯುನಲ್ ಅಮಿಟಿ ಈ ಗೆಳೆಯರು ಮಾಡಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಈ ಕೆಲಸ ಶ್ಲಾಘನೀಯ. ನಾನು ಭಾಳ ಹೆಮ್ಮೆ ಮತ್ತು ಸಂತೋಷದಿಂದ ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮದಲ್ಲಿ ಭಾಗವಹಿಸಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ಇಂಥ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮಗಳನ್ನು ಎಲ್ಲ ಜಿಲ್ಲಾ ಮಟ್ಟಗಳಲ್ಲೂ ನಾವು ತಗೊಂಡು ಹೋಗಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ. ಈ ಮ್ಯಾನಿಫೆಸ್ಟೋನ ಈ ರಾಜ್ಯದ 7 ಕೋಟಿ ಮತದಾರರಿಗೆ ನಾವು ತಲುಪಿಸುವಂಥ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಯತ್ನ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ.
Thank you very much for that wonderful presidential address. And with the leadership of this distinguished panel, I'm sure Fdca could do a lot more. I need to announce that there is a food waiting for all of us downstairs, but I need to intervene before the food. There is a formal word of thanks, and please do not miss this. Unfortunately, because of the pressure from the press, we had to jump this. I'm sure all of you have a copy of the manifesto for the Karnataka Assembly elections. Should I read this? Huh? Everybody has got a copy, so the president, the panel says it's okay not to read. Please go through this. I think it's a wonderful document. The drafting could be different. However, the content is excellent. I'm sure all of you agree on that. Can I have a raise of hands on these issues, please? Thank you. Thank you very much. I invite our Madam Katyayani, a wonderful, dynamic civic activist, to please speak the word of thanks, after which we go down for lunch with everybody. Please, ma'am.
Not for me. Okay, thank you. Enough. Thank you. So, good afternoon, everybody. President of this occasion, Honorable Justice Nagmohan Das, and all the panelists, Professor Ravi Verma Kumar, Mr. Arvind Narain, Mr. Devasahayam, Professor Vasvi, Mr. Muhammad Saad, and all those who have assembled here. It's my proud privilege to give this vote of thanks. I know I'm standing between you and lunch, so I will not take very long. And we first of all thank Mr. Ravi Verma Kumar for making us realize that we have to become active if we want to change the system. Thank you very much, sir. And Mr. Arvind Narain has brought forth all the anti-constitutional things that have been done by this current government and in terms of various laws. And so we need to be very careful about the steps we take in the future about whom we want to vote for. And Mr. Devasahayam has, so we thank you, Mr. Arvindaran, for being present and for giving us your valuable thoughts. Mr. Devasahayam is a very great proponent of the democratic principle of every vote being counted and recorded as voted. So we thank you very much, sir, for bringing out the issues regarding the EVMs and the failure of the democratic principle being held because of these machines taking over our desire to vote for a particular person. And Mr. Dr. Vasvi, of course, we are very proud that at least we had one woman on the panel, and so she has brought forth the very undemocratic way the leaders are functioning in our state, how personal largesse and personal politics has taken over the politics of the state in place of the democratic way of functioning. So we thank you very much to Professor Vasvi for this enlightening thoughts about the political culture of the state, and we need to beware about the kind of yajmans we vote for in the coming election. And Mr. Mohammed Saad, thank you very much for pointing out the polarization that is being done, which is violating all our constitutional values by dividing society and promoting hate and divisiveness. And we need to be really aware of these facts when we go to vote next. And of course, Justice Nag Mohan Das, who has presided over this function, we are always privileged, sir, to have you with us and your enlightening thoughts. And he has told us about the long-term and short-term for people who uphold our constitutional values. And I thank all of you for your very active participation and patient hearing for all the speakers, and for being present here to support Forum for Democracy and Communal Amity. We promise to take forward this to other groups and electors, groups of electors, so that we really have a very democratic and fair and free election in the coming assembly election for Karnataka. So all of you have thanked us, have also supported us by signing this manifesto that we have made. We are sorry we were not able to present it, but I think Justice Nag Mohan Das reiterated many of the points that we have already prepared in our manifesto. So please vote according to this manifesto and demand this accountability from our candidates who are going to stand for the elections. So thank you one and all, and I thank Mr. Pasha and our executive committee for all the work they have done to hold this program, and Mr. Fazal and Mr. Rafi and Mr. Basharat, they all worked very hard for this, and I thank them also. And so I hope all of you will have a good lunch now. Thank you all for participating. I thank the media also for coming, and we hope they will report about this very well in the papers tomorrow. Also, the KAS Association for giving us this hall. And the lunch is downstairs.